Hey guys, new video here. Shot Deadeye. It's kind of an update to the league start. It's been 1 week. I just want to show the map first so you can see if it's something that you want to do. Now this league has been crazy. Starting bows has been rough. I think a lot of people have been trying out different bow skills like socketing in, lightning arrow, split arrow, ice shot, barrage, the artillery totems, and it's been an adventure. I've learned a lot. A lot of other people have been offering good suggestions on like having a single target and a clear, because the game is very different now where you can't just like press really one button. You kind of need a single target, especially if you're gonna go into like the T16s. So with this, I think I figured out like a good kind of a good balance for me, for my playstyle. For the purpose of this video, this character is level 95. I've taken off my headhunter and I put on a Bisco's leash. I think it's like a 20C belt. I've gone ahead on my skill tree. I've taken out my inspired learnings and put in about 1 to 5C abyssal jewels. I do not have a watcher's eye for this build because I can't afford it. Like I actually can't afford it at the current time of this video. So there's a lot of upside on the build. My gems, if you look at them, it's 2020s, no quality 2020s. Some have failed corruptions. Well, this one's 21, the chain. And then this is like 2011. Like if you look at the gems here, they're well, okay, these are pretty good because I succeed on the corruptions there. But it's not really min-maxed. So let me just show you this map here. This is a wharf map. I'll put actually, just to make the video faster, I'll just do it like this. And here we go. So the ice shot is used for the clear, the barrage is used for the single target, and then the totems, the artillery totem, oops, I sound too much. And then no, sorry, not artillery totems. The totems that I have are ensnaring arrow totems because they are like a more multiplier. So imagine the item called a Tomb Fist, which gives you intimidate on hit, which I'm also using. You can think of the ensnaring arrow as like an extra couple Tomb Fists, right? Just making the enemy take more damage, and all those taken modifiers, they kind of stack up. They're not multiplicative, but it is a nice chunk of damage, especially since you're gonna be running variety maps, and there might be a lot of maps that have things like a phase boss. There might be a lot of maps that have something like where a metamorph, you put in the organs and then you have to wait a certain amount of time for them to spawn. So while you're waiting, the ballista totems, you can see how fast I can place 3 of them, and you do get 3. What they do is they help to not only slow down, oh, these are my incubators proccing, but not only do they help to slow down the monster that is quite dangerous. As you can see, like, I didn't really need to put them down there because these guys got destroyed. Let's talk to these guys. Let's do this. Talk to this girl. All right, let's do that. And which way am I going here? Let's go this way. And this is a tier 14, I believe, warp. So it will get a little bit harder on the T16s. The scaling, it feels pretty linear. Like when you go from 14 to 16, I think that you do feel it. And of course, the rewards are a little bit better to compensate, especially with the awakening level stuff. So as you can see, I'm having no problem on this build here clearing. And no build these days, like 1 week in, really has an issue with clearing, right? The trash in this game, although yes, it has been buffed with its like life, resist, armor, all that stuff, it's still the usual trash for any half decent build. But you'll see when it comes to boss killing, I'm gonna use my barrage here. The boss killing is where it matters, and that's why I kind of have to use my barrage. If I spam my ice shot on some of these T16 bosses, it's a mess. It's just like you feel like it's ZDPS, and ZDPS has been like kind of a meme in this league because like everybody's got ZDPS sometimes, depending on the map mods. Okay, and then once again, the map mods are multiplied by awakening level bonus. So here, let me spam my ice shot here. You see this? Okay, you see that damage? It's terrible. But now let me put down 3 totems and then watch this. You see that? So that is the difference between using your clear skill, which sometimes your clear skill can have extreme single target base damage. Like 176 is, I think, pretty crazy. Let me drop down 3 totems here, and I hope my barrage doesn't miss. All right, here we go. So that's my barrage damage right there, as you can see. Now, the barrage damage, pretty good. Oh, okay. I died there, but I was talking, I wasn't paying attention. I don't have a cast on death, so I'll have to go back for that loot, actually. Okay, but I just want to showcase the build. As you can see, there is a clear difference between your clearing skill and your single target skill, and this is going to be more pronounced if you play a bow build. Okay, gone are the days of 1-button builds and like just a 1 6-link setup. Okay, so first let's talk about the tree. I'm doing this for gathering wins because I dropped my temp chain setup because it felt pretty garbage, because there's a bug right now where you see how if you have influence here, when you have influence, what's going to happen is it hides the watchstones. It's not supposed to. In the patch notes, they said that you were supposed to be able to socket out and in the watchstones, and of course sextant them if influence has spawned. This is Drox, the warlord, and he has taken over the zone, and now my watchstones are disappeared. What that means is that you get less monsters, because who knows when he's going to actually spawn. It's RNG based, and that makes it kind of it makes it kind of iffy, right? So that's kind of an issue right there. These days. But going over the skill tree here, so that's why I took out the temp chains, because I can't sextant for them. So I took Gathering Winds, so this makes you overall faster animation speed. And then I have Far Shot, just a little bit of damage. The chain, because the ice shot with the chain not only will deal more damage, right, on the initial hits, but it will also give you a little bit of spread, a little bit of coverage. And coverage is, you know, obviously clear, and protection because of freezes. And then I go for the Endless Munitions. Now, accuracy is extremely important these days, you know, because the monsters do so much damage, especially the Metamorph and some of the map bosses, that if there is a moment where you miss and maybe you don't freeze, maybe you don't stun, maybe you don't get the damage needed to take them down to 0, then you might actually die as well. So firing additional projectile is clear. The AoE is nice for your Herald of Ice. Anything else on the build that uses AoE, this 50% affects it. And once again, accuracy is huge. Right now with my, I haven't focused on accuracy anywhere on my jewels, my tree, my gear, and you can see my barrage accuracy is 100/96, right? And then same with the ice shot, which are my 2 skills. So that's the Ascensa. You can go there. And then, of course, if you go a temp chain setup, make sure to drop Gathering Winds, because Tailwind does not work with a temporal chain setup. When you are cursed with temporal chains, you gain 0 benefit from the Gathering Winds. Okay, as for the tree, pretty standard crit projectile tree. If you look at this, this is pretty cookie cutter. It is exactly the same as almost all the other bow builds from leagues prior. The only differences are I drop King of the Hill, because King of the Hill is amazing. These 4 points, if you look at the value you get, it feels bad to drop them. I have to though, because my barrage, if you look at the cone right here, okay, you see this cone right here? Right about here at this distance, the spread is enough where some monsters will not be hit by all proj. So if you're constantly knocking back an enemy, okay, and if there's any desync, you will be losing. There's a huge less multiplier to your damage. It's unreliable, and of course, less chances of, like, if you don't freeze, if you don't stun or whatever, then the monster's gonna get a free shot on you. It's extremely annoying to play with. If you play party play, this is gonna annoy your teammates. So I had to take it out on, if I wasn't using a barrage setup, if I was ice shot and let's say I was using artillery ballista or siege ballista support with any other skill, I would absolutely take King of the Hill. Acro and phase acro I feel are mandatory, because there's so many effects you can't see, so many effects that are hard to see, black on black backgrounds, red on red backgrounds. It's ridiculous. Just take this to give you something that's working all the time as a layer of defense. Okay, other than that, I have like some penetration here. I'm cold damage, so I have some penetration here. Penetration really important because of the scaling of the awakening level bonus here, the way that it multiplies map mod resistances. Monsters have more resistances and bosses have more res this league overall. So penetration, pretty damn good. That's what I took there. Jewel sockets, if you can get like a two-point jewel socket, you always take it for an abyssal jewel, or if you already have a ton of damage, right? Then you can also take an increased damage jewel. So sorry, a non-abyssal jewel. So you can get percentages, you know, bow damage, projectile damage, you know, increased generic damage, crit multi with all the elemental, with ice skills, with crit multi with elemental skills, global crit multi. You know, it doesn't matter. There's so many mods on those jewels that you can get a 3 mod damage or a 1 life 2 damage for probably 4 or 5C. Right, because if you look at my abyssal jewels, these were 1 to 5C, because if on abyssal jewels, if you want a life roll with 2 damage rolls, if you don't care about the specific element, you're just on a budget, 1C, 5C. Don't spend any more than that, because the extra LE damage that you add when you already have things like added cold and this big damage effectiveness, it's less of a multiplier than you might think. So be careful with spending your money there. As for the jewel down here, as you can see, I'm shoring up my resist here. Now here, this slot right here is a good slot, because Jolem's Blood is a nice node, and it leads to, like, if you want to do some weird stuff down here, if you're using totems or whatever, this jewel is a 2-pointer, but you can put your Watcher's Eye in here. Once again, I cannot afford a Watcher's Eye. Currently, crit hatred Watcher's Eyes are like 10 exalts plus. If you want a hatred Watcher's Eye with any other mod, another hatred mod, another precision mod, which you use, it's gonna be like 50 exalts, and that is, at this point, that's ludicrous, right? So this will be the Watcher's Eye mod. I mean, you could also have it here, because, you know, I anticipate, like, once you get going, like, let's say you get to like level 98, then I'd have this jewel socket right here, or I'd have another jewel socket somewhere else. So that's also an option, right? These slots, if you do go the Inspire Learning route, if you're a pure mapper, let's say you have 2 characters, well, this character is a mapper, you're gonna put Inspire Learning right here, because this is amazing, this is amazing, this is amazing, and this is amazing, these clusters. So all the Inspired clusters are perfect for this. If you're lacking accuracy, you can even drop Frenzy, or if you don't have a way to generate Frenzy for some reason, you can just drop these 2 and put them right here. I would not drop this, I wouldn't drop this, and I would not drop this. Of course, if you, I don't know, if you don't care about life, you could drop this, I guess. But this is a big damage and accuracy boost right here. That's one swap. And then, of course, if I were to go and Inspire Learning up here, if you want to go that route, you have to take these. This one counts, Resourcefulness, amazing node. Okay, so that's basically the skill tree. You can tweak it around a little bit. You can work with like a little bit less damage, more life, a little bit more life, a little bit less damage. It's up to you, right? You can have some nice nodes right here, right here. So that is the tree. Let's go over gear. As for gear, we have a Death's Opus. I got this on day 2 for 20C. Right now, I believe it's a little bit more expensive. The Death's Opus is nice because it fires 2 additional arrows. It's a fizz base. Ice Shot converts from physical into the ice, right? 60%, and the other 40% is pretty easily gotten on the tree. Right here, I think I forgot to talk about that. Make sure you take Winter Spirit for the full conversion. And so this bow, it gives you that spread, it gives you that crit multi, which you can see as kind of a more multiplier, right, to your overall damage if you have a high enough crit and a diamond flask. So overall, pretty good bow here. As for the helmet, the Fractal Thoughts is really, really good because of the way that it interacts with the Hyres. Now, Hyres gives you a lot of added damage. I guess eventually you could go a Void Fletcher if you really like this this build, but Void Fletcher with an implicit corruption that takes off the pierce is unbelievably expensive. And I didn't feel like I neither had the money nor felt like spending the money at this time. So Hyres adds a bunch of free LE damage based on your stats, and usually you're gonna have a lot of dex. So the dex is good because dex corresponds to the cold damage on this. So you're gonna get a lot of added cold, which is the element that you really want. You're gonna get some free fire damage for ignites. You're gonna get some free lightning damage for a little bit of shock, maybe, you know, and then of course stats and attack speed and a little bit of ink AoE, a little bit of defensive with a little life gain for enemies hits. So really nice mid-range weapon and quiver here. Now let's talk about Fractal Thoughts a little bit more. It does also have crit multi, so that's a big boost to damage. It has a damage roll per 10 dex. That's a little bit more big damage, and it does have a life, like a pseudo life roll on it. See, I have 150 intelligence, and what that means is that's 15 times 2, that's 30 life. Not that great, but it is something. The big part about this is how cheap it is. If you want to buy a Fractal Thoughts, it's probably going to be 1C. As you can see, mine's not perfect. Mine's 38 out of 40 crit multi. I might change that later. I just don't have the divines. The enchant will be extremely expensive if you want a well-known enchant. So if you want a damage enchant, expensive. If you want a maybe like a Temp Chains curse enchant, expensive. If you want something that people know of, right, and that's like sought after, that's meta, it will be expensive. All right, maybe like 5 exalts, maybe 3 exalts, maybe 10 exalts. Scourge Arrow or something, I don't even know. This enchant, because nobody searches for the lesser enchants, so this enchant was unbelievably cheap. This is increased Assassin's Mark on hit, and you're like, people are like, what? Why would you get that, right? Because people want, like, if you're gonna go to curse, why not Temp Chains or like LE weakness, which is more global, right? But it's because this is super cheap. And the Assassin's Mark, I'm using a ring that has Assassin's Mark on curse on hit, right? Because the Assassin's Mark is good because when you don't have a Watcher's Eye with the hatred crit added to the base, you know, every little bit of crit makes it more reliable. Because if you crit, you auto freeze, unless the map has like freeze immunity, or the Metamorph right now is bugged for freeze immunity. So that's why I like the Assassin's Mark curse on hit. It was cheap and it gives me a little bit of reliability for my freezes. Next, we have the chest, the Hyries Ire. The Hyries Ire base is about 2 exalts. You can link it. Well, I don't actually recommend you linking it yourself. Okay, I was lucky enough to have linked it before I saw some of the changes in the fusing price, but the fusing price is absurd right now. So it is almost always going to be cheaper for you to buy a 6-linked chest that you want and then divine it if it has like some range of rolls that matters than it is to 6-link it yourself. Okay, be very careful about the price, because you can think of it like this: 1200 fusings is the average stated by Grinding Gear, right, with 20% quality chest to get a 6-link. If you divide 1200 by the current number of fusings to exalts, you'll get how many exalts it takes on average to link the chest. That number is gonna be at the point of this video on the 21st of December, that number is gonna be way higher in terms of exalts than just buying the chest. So just buy the chest straight out if you can. The Hyries adds a lot of cold damage on par with like maybe a lower leveled added cold gem, right? So it's pretty good, and you get dodge, which is very important. I feel this league in the maps, because so many things can kill you, and that's a little bit of extra defenses that you don't have to worry about. You don't have to push a button for. Mine's not that great because the evasion rating goes up pretty high, and of course evasion for the attacks that come into you, that would help a little bit as well. So Hyries here for the chest. As for the belt, the Bisco's Leash. Bisco's Leash is nice because it has a big resist. It has strength, which is a little tiny bit of life. Rarity and quantity, Magic Find is great, especially, once again, going back to multiplying the Awakening level bonuses that you're going to be getting. So it's like free Magic Find. And then the Rampage. Now, if you can stack up to 1,000, you get a 100% increased damage and 20% move speed. That's huge, right? For any character that is focusing on maps. Cheap belt as well. Let's talk about the boots. Boots is where you're going to shore up your resist. Now, mine has a slot for an extra resist, but I've chosen to craft life on these. You just look for any boots that have 30 plus movement speed. Ideally, at the end game, you want 35 move speed and a 6% additional move speed roll on that for a little bit extra juice. And maybe you want to even enchant 10% movement speed on there if you don't want the attack speed or whatever, right? This is just the first enchant I got. I want 10% move speed. I do not want to do Uber Lap, so I'm not going to do that. And then you can, if you want to go unique boots, bubonic trails are going to be your best option because they have a 30% move speed roll, and also they have 2 slots for abyssal sockets, which you can add in life or resist, like pseudo resist, but it will not be probably as much as a actual rare boots that focuses on resist. As for the amulet, the Solstice Virgil, now this amulet is questionable because I'm not using a self-cursed temp chains, and the Solstice Virgil right now in the map I just showed you, all it was doing was like kind of increasing the duration of like my charges and my flasks, right, when you're not self-cursing or juicing. Now in this slot, I think the best in slot is going to be a Pandemonious. Okay, Halcyon with a Blessing of Tool becomes a Pandemonious, or you can just straight up buy the Pandemonious, because the Pandemonious has penetration, it's got like some defenses on it, and it's great. It's got a resist on it. And also if you use the, I think it's a Prismatic Catalyst or the Turbulent, I think it's Turbulent Catalyst, it multiplies the damage penetration. Okay, that's crazy. So Pandemonious is your best slot here for Ice Shot. Once again, I'm using this, I just have a Solstice here because of you know, I will convert to a juicing character. Rings, this one is the Taming. Taming is, let's see, at the time of this video, the Taming is how much? A Taming is 2 exalts. So 2 exalted orbs for a Taming. It's insane because if you have an attack skill, you get the 30% wed, you get the 30% ele damage, and then you get damage for every free shock and ignite on the enemy. And the Hyries Quiver gives you all of those, right? Even without any abyssal jewels. So you're always going to have a huge damage multiplier from a Taming. You can even use 2 Tamings if you want, right? Because they do stack that bonus there. Now, another thing to note is that this is used with the Turbulent, I believe it's a Turbulent Catalyst again. The Turbulent Catalyst will multiply all the damage rolls by 20%. If I press my my advanced show, you'll see that parentheses 20% increase across all 3 of those, well, all 4 of those damage modifiers. So that's pretty nuts. As for the ring, I went with a ring that has a level 8 Assassin's Mark on hit. Go with a level 12 if you want to spend a little bit more money. And then what this will do is anything hit, if you're using artillery totems or siege ballistic support totems, the totems will apply this assassin's mark as well, so it's really good. And so now I have 2 curses, right? So this is just show up your resist, get the assassin mark if you want to, and then we have a Tomb Fist. Now if you know, this is a 1-socket Tomb Fist, right? Because the 2-socket Tomb Fist would be too expensive and they don't exist yet. So if you know from the past, if you have a 2-socket Tomb Fist with any kind of ally weakness curse on hit, that's gonna be 50 to 80 exalts. But because nobody cares about the 1-socket Tomb Fist, because the 1-socket Tomb Fist is so plentiful and so easy to corrupt, a 1-socket Tomb Fist with a corruption of your choice is only going to be a few exalts. I was able to buy this one for 6 exalts, and I think that's a steal because I get a maximum life roll, which is like 1 skill point on the tree. I get a level 12 ally weakness on hit, which is, you know, lowering the resist is very important these days. And then also like dropping 1 abyssal jewel is like not so bad, because the way I can think about that is I can just level like 3 times, grab another jewel socket, and then it's the same thing, right? So losing 1 jewel socket for minus I think like 30, I don't even know, 37 resist or whatever, 31 resist. I don't know how much the level 12 ally weakness is, but that is well worth it in my opinion. So overall, that's the gear, nothing too crazy. And then if you want to really invest, then you're gonna go the Headhunter route, you're gonna go the Solstice Virgil route, and then you're gonna go probably a couple, 1 or 2 Inspired Learnings depending on your character level. As for the flask, I just have a diamond flask of warding. If you're juicing, you can't use a warding, but I'm currently using a non-juicing setup, so we have a warding here. We have a Cinder Swallow. Now Cinder Swallow is really nice because it gives you increased crit and recovery when you kill the enemy. So you can think of it kind of like instant leech, as long as you're killing, right? And it can save your life a lot of the time. Another thing that you can get is you can just get a normal silver flask if you need a suffix. This one only has 1 charge used. When you press this, it kind of you don't have another use, so that's one of the bad things about it. But if you also, another thing is if you ignite an enemy, what's going to happen is they're going to take 10% increased damage, so another more multiplier there. Alchemist Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline. This is really nice for going speedy, but these days, since lots of monsters have a lot of health, you're not that speedy. You can also use an Experimenter's Quicksilver. You can use a Chemist's Quicksilver. You can use any prefix you want, really. This one's a Dying Sun. The Dying Sun is for 2 additional proj, so that when I shoot my ice shot here, right, I get, see how I have 4, but if I pop the Dying Sun, I now have 2 more, so a little bit extra coverage on the ice shot, a little bit extra chaining. And then for the barrage, it'll add 2 additional projectiles. Since I have 8 arrows without it up, and I have 10, that's if all arrows land, that's 25% DPS increase. And then the last one is just a sulfur flask of heat, because I needed the suffix. If I wasn't going to use the magic flask in this slot, then if for whatever reason you're using like Combs boots to avoid freeze, or you're a raider or a pathfinder, then you can use an Azubi's Promise. It is a purple flask that gives you resistance, and it also gives you more multiplier to your damage, which is pretty nice. So that's all the flasks there, and that's the build. I think in this version it's fine. I'm able to take out the T16 Conquers and all that stuff. I haven't killed Sirius yet because I'm building a tanky boy, a specific boss killer, so I can do carries and stuff for you know, people, and that's going to come out later. But this build is okay. I will have another video coming out soon because I did test out. I did an entire day of Explosive Arrow, Burning Arrow with the Ignite version. I did a couple hours of Lightning Arrow and Scourge Arrow. I wasn't able to test that out for longer. Like, I wanted to test out for longer, but there was this bug where whenever I had to search to pull a map to run, if I typed in anything in here, like I'll type in like map or like tier or something like that to search for, well, this is my MTX thing, but if I went to the stash and I typed in anything in this search field, it would instantly crash my game to the desktop every single time. So I had to manually like look for the maps to pull out and run, and after 2 hours I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. So in the future video, you know, my thoughts on the Scourge or Lightning Arrow will be condensed because I don't feel like 2 hours is enough to get a feel for the character. I feel like you need at least like 4 hours or a full day. And I also will have my thoughts on Ice Shot and all this stuff, and I will compare them for a kind of a newer mid-range player who might not know what they're doing and wants just to choose, I guess, the overall best skill for you know, the most content possible. So I'll have that video out maybe tomorrow. Maybe that it requires a little bit of editing, and that takes a long time, especially when I want to stream and play the game. Other than that, it's been pretty fun. I will be iterating a little bit on the build, and if you have any questions about this, I know it's super confusing, and you're gonna be testing on a lot of stuff, and I'm gonna be testing on a lot of stuff, so nobody really knows for sure what the optimal stuff is. POB is gonna tell you one thing, but when you play, those numbers are gonna go out the window, trust me on that. So you know, we can figure it out together. I'll stream every day on Twitch, twitch.tv/qdog_. If you have any questions, come ask me there. And thanks for watching my video. Okay, bye.